Hello and welcome to another edition of Unfiltered with Bob Z. And today we're going to continue on with our election special. And one of the things we wanted to do with the election special, we wanted to get people from different sectors of the community. We didn't just want to do an election special that just primarily hosts politicians, because we know that's one genre of people in this crazy election season. But so we wanted to tap into the community and look at different aspects. So today we're going to deal with, you say religious or spiritual, but religion and spirituality are two different things. But that's a whole nother podcast. So we're not going to get into that. But we do have someone that I consider to be a spiritual person, and he's been there. I've been knowing him. We went to school together at Norfolk State. He pledged another fraternity, but it's okay. It's okay. We all in the same gang now, you know what I mean? Yes. So that's good. So I want to welcome to the podcast Dr. Melvin Marriner from Grove Church, VA. How you doing, Pastor?
And I'm just glad to be here with you, man. So my day has gotten a lot better because I'm sitting here with you and the hard work you've been doing, man. I commend you on that, man, because let me just say it in the vernacular. You're just a real dude, and you bring information that really promotes positivity within our community. So thank you, Bob Z.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. I'm not really. I mean, I appreciate the accolades. Don't get it wrong. I mean, it always feels good on a humanistic level, but I just feel like I owe the community, and a lot of times when we think that we owe a debt to society, sometimes we think about it as serving time or something like that. But, owing a debt to society is something that we can do in the here and now, yes. And try to make that. So I have a couple of questions. Let's just start off, and I just want to kind of, since this is the election special, I want to kind of, I went back to the Constitution. And so I said, well, in the confines of this separation of church and state doctrine, I think that's what they call it in the legal and political terms, the separation of church and state doctrine, excuse me. And as well as many churches being able to maintain their nonprofit status, because I think that's a big thing that they use when people want to speak out against this policy or that policy, or, you can't promote that candidate. Certain things you can and cannot say. Mm-hmm. How do the religious institutions adapt the ability to speak out when clearly their guidance, leadership, and discernment is needed, seemingly more now than ever?
Well, if you're comparing as far as the separation of church and state with our expression not only of faith but ideology, I think we look at that, and we do. Churches do have the 501c3 nonprofit, and you want to make sure we maintain that level of distinction because it's important. But on the other hand, we also must understand the codes, the IRS codes,
right,
that definitely gives us permission as a religious entity, organization, not to endorse a candidate or a political party, but we can be engaged, involved. And so for a long time, they've been saying, and really intimidating the church and pastors, if you say something, we're going to take away your 501c, your nonprofit status. The only way they can do that is if the church itself or herself supports or endorses a candidate, which means that they actually have to put it on letterhead and go vote for it, and the church must do it. The pastor, on the other hand, can speak on his behalf because it's not an ecclesiastical endorsement from the church.
Okay. So you can't just say like, this man is the devil. I ain't calling no names, but I mean, literally, just any, and that, I know it's a law. We're a nation of laws. I get it, but some stuff is so, in my opinion, and believe me, I'm no theologian by anybody's stretch of any imagination. But I'm just, I just think about it, and I'll say, well, it's kind of a handicap where it's kind of a keeps the truth a little bit, based upon, like you said, if you do that, we're gonna, threaten you or
I don't know. I may differ a little bit because after 31 years being in senior leadership at a church, I find that our voices are needed just as any other voice is needed.
Okay.
I don't think that we should cower down and simply silence our voice because of our ecclesiastical or clergy position.
Right.
That Black America is the only group of people that is conscientious of that. Most other people do what they want to do and say what they want to say, such as the Jerry Falwells.
Right.
I mean, so I'm not going to sit here and say the person that you mentioned or didn't mention that you went around is the devil. I have a different definition of the devil.
Okay.
And so he is not the epitome of evil, but he is the personification of evil. And because when I look at evil, I think that, what he's done and what he's doing is that he has released such toxic conversation that has been the bedrock of America.
Right.
And so, no, he's not the devil in essence, but he's the personification of evil.
Okay, well, I was gonna say something funny, but I would say, well, not the devil, but what do they call it? When the Antichrist. No, we're not gonna, let's move along. Let's move along. But since you mentioned the Black community, so historically the Black church was one always been on the forefront of any social justice movement in this country. What role do you see the Black church playing in these contemporary times? They don't seem as visible. I'm not, getting down before y'all start. I'm not getting down on the Black church, but, it's unfiltered. So, they don't seem as visible. So what are your thoughts on that?
Okay. I'm not a biased person. I try to look at things from a fair perspective. I'm not sure if the church is invisible. I'm thinking that people aren't looking at the church as they once did.
Okay.
The church was the center of strength for Black communities.
Indeed.
Now we have so many more movements that also now filter and take some responsibility away from the church and help us do what we have been called to do, which is to speak truth to power, is to liberate people, not just spiritually, but holistically. You can't liberate me spiritually and then keep my mind and my body as enslaved. And so I don't see, even in this pandemic, in this season, I have witnessed churches speak out. We have been engaged in community activity. We have been engaged in marches. But again, if you don't have that name recognition and that church recognition, people think that other churches aren't involved. And I will submit to you that because we have other organizations, which is powerful and needful, the church is no stronger than the people who attend. The church is no stronger than the people who provide resources. The church is no stronger than the people who have a spiritual consciousness about helping people no matter what.
Okay, that makes sense. And just to kind of,
Can I say this?
Yes, sir.
There are some churches that are not doing anything.
Okay.
They are simply sitting there having a good time doing Facebook Live, and the church has become a center of ego. And we are building monuments to ourselves. I'm not saying that we don't have a concern, but the church for me is still the strongest part of our community. It's just not the only strength that the Black community we have now. I mean, the church was it back in the day.
Right. And I think, when I look at just looking at the microcosm of what's going on, if I look at and see the marches, you have Reverend Abernathy, Reverend King, they locking arms. They were in the front of the protests for social justice. And I'm not saying the church is invisible. I just think that it's become less visible. And I don't know what to attribute that to, but I do know it should be more of of a contempt. It kind of just, I almost segued myself. I'm going to my next question, and so I was thinking about, and when I was thinking about addressing some of these questions with you,
okay,
I was thinking about Jesus, and I was thinking about the depictions of Jesus, and I was watching the documentary the other day, and I think it was Killer Mike, one of the rappers that's always speaking out, and he was talking about the only reason that that we kept a lot of the verses in the Bible were taught to us to keep us submissive, slaves, obey your masters, all those type of things. And so my question is that there are so many different depictions in the Bible of Jesus and other literature, and in the midst of the current state of the political landscape, I want to know, do we need the turn of the cheek Jesus, or do we need the kicking over the table in the temple Jesus in these perilous times?
Theological question. I mean, really.
I'm no theologian.
Well, I think we're all overcoming. And so I think that's an important question, but let me kind of back up because you threw something out there in your last comment about King and Ralph Abernathy and Larry and others.
Right.
We had them, and they paid their dues. I'm not sure if we need another king.
Okay.
Because we have so many other kings. We have so many other Ralphs. We have so many other Larrys out here who are doing things. Well, I definitely support the Black Lives Matter movement fundamentally. I haven't always approved of some things that they allowed in their name.
Right.
So the thing is, and some things I don't approve of myself doing, so I'm still growing and evolving as well. So my point in saying that is that we do have people on the leadership. Mm-hmm. You talk about William Barber, who has the Poor People's Campaign.
Reverend Barber.
I mean, you talk about a lot of people who are doing things, but maybe not in the limelight of where the media is. During this pandemic season and racial upheaval, I mean, do you have many pastors have been trying to keep their congregations sane mentally, emotionally? Yeah. We miss that aspect of it because we don't see it in the street. But we have to encourage people to stay sane while they're protesting and to do things that are necessary in order to live life in a healthier way. And so to get back to your question about Jesus, it's Jesus who has a dualism, it's Jesus who can turn tables over and turn the other cheek. That turn the other cheek piece has nothing to do with pacifism. It has everything to do with discipline. It means don't let the person who's hurting you make you become like them. Turning the other cheek isn't saying that I allow you to abuse me over and over. And we have been taught that, and we have taught it in the black church.
Okay.
Now, but we got to teach it correctly. So I think we need both Jesuses. I think we need Jesus who says it's time to turn tables over, a Jesus who says it's time to turn the other cheek, because it's about discipline. When do I do it? When do I turn the other cheek? Because some things I simply have to have a nonviolent resistance. And there's some other things it can't be counteracted with nonviolence. If you come to me and you're trying to hurt my family, I'm not going to turn the other cheek. If I do turn the other cheek, I'm reaching for my peace.
Right. I never heard that one before.
I'm being honest with you. I mean, yeah. We're living in a time now that I'm glad that we aren't going to take it anymore. We aren't going to take the physical abuse. But there are some things that we can tolerate if there's a bigger objective.
Right.
If the objective is going to be sidetracked or distracted from the objective, then I got to rethink that. So it's about discipline. So we need a Jesus who says, not right now. We will deal with this later. That's discipline. He showed discipline. Then we need a Jesus who said, you know what? I have to turn some tables over. The church folk called it righteous indignation. But he was angry. He was mad.
I get that. And for me personally, I have never, ever, personally wanted to own a firearm.
Okay.
I just didn't. I grew up and I saw way too many things way too early.
Sure.
And so that was just not something that I wanted. But I've been looking. They done bought they done bought everything out. Ammunition. And it's just I'm thinking when I say perilous times, I'm really like saying, wow, these things are like, just it's different. It's a different. If I'm riding my bike down the street or walking and I see a pickup truck, I'm looking to see who. And I'm not trying to call anybody out specifically, but I mean, hey, it is what it is when it comes to stereotypes. Sometimes they get that way for a reason.
True.
They weren't just created. So
Wow.
and just to kind of touch on again what you were saying, I remember one time I was called out by some people in human resources because when you were thinking about talking about turning the other cheek, and I was like, I always want to think I'm kicking over the table, Jesus. I'm going to punch you in your face, Democrats. That's always the kind of my mentality because that's the way it is. But I remember one time I had to apologize. I didn't have to apologize. I was going and write them up. They wrote me up. And at the same time, I heard God speak to me and say, "Nah, you're gonna write, but you ain't gonna write that. You're gonna go and write an apology." But I said, "But I'm right, God." I said, "I know." I said, "But I'm the one that's right." He said, "I know you're right. Go ahead, write the apology." And I wrote the apology, and they were saying, "What manner of man is this that he's gonna apologize when he's right?" And so I get what you're saying, And that enormous amount of power that comes from that discipline. To say, wow, and I've never forgot that, it's like, man, one of the most powerful things. But at the same time, like I said, I got a granddaughter, don't,
Yeah,
don't.
You shifted a little bit, but it's okay to shift though.
Right. So that's the.
I mean, back in the day, we weren't really allowed to have guns and weapons, and we couldn't afford them. That's why I was very proud of the Black Panthers. I'm very happy to see blacks coming together because America is a gun-toting,
oh my God,
in crazy world. I mean, it is. I mean, America is what it is. America has been very barbaric, but yet at the same token, it's been one of the greatest countries that in the world. I've only lived here. I don't have any desire to go anywhere else.
Yeah.
But again, truth is truth. You can't throw the baby out with the bathwater, but you got to keep washing the baby.
Okay.
America has had filth, and America is in a filthy place now. But I think America can be cleansed. It can be forgiven.
And I believe that. I believe that's going to take some work, but I still, and my whole thing politically has always been, I worked at the Ford plant in a union for 15 years, and I was thinking that, if we could just get the people that were like middle class and, underserved communities for either race to come together, we have all the decision-making ability. But I'm gonna shift a little bit.
Okay.
This political season has the country divided, which is kind of what we're talking about, like never before. Maybe with the exception of the Civil War, but I still think it's pretty much the same. I mean, the different sides and different factions that were on the Civil War is just kind of, sometimes I say, well, when I look at things, generational stuff, I say, well, when I look at some of the tragedies, I say, well, and I don't take any pleasure in saying, well, that might be the crack babies' babies. Mm. You know what I mean? It's like this has been a generational tragedy, just generational sludge. It's been passed on from generations. So, what is your message today to today's young people that don't seem to be as compliant and docile as perhaps the youth of our generation?
Wow. Again, I don't know if the youth of our generation was docile. I think that now we have more visibility because of media, because they're willing now to bring cameras into the black community and understand black protests. In the 60s, we saw things from one-sided. They only showed the police, but they never showed our side. Mm-hmm. And so I don't know, I'm not even trying to defend us, but I'm thankful that we are now more visible because of social media and because of cell phones and devices that can capture moments that others won't capture. And so I'm glad. I think that we should be supporting them in their language, but also, let's be honest, they may not want to hear it, but I think that those of us who have lived through some things should not weaken their movement, right, but that we should help them and understand wisdom in a movement. I'm not sure if all of them understand what wisdom is in a movement. Mm-hmm. They have strength, but we just sit at the table and say, what does your strength, or where is your strength being applied and what is the outcome?
Okay.
The outcomes are important. It's not just turning tables over, but Jesus does that because he wants to make sure the temple stays clean.
Okay.
So what is our protest leading us into? I say to the generation, keep moving. I'm behind you. No, I'm not for looting.
No.
I'm not for vandalism. You know, I could care less if those monuments were moved. I'm glad they're gone, but I could care less if the monuments were moved to statues, because you remove a statue, but you still have the statutes. You still have the laws in place. You still have to use the temperament. America hasn't changed as much as we say it has. It's just been suppressed.
Right.
This president has released it.
Yeah.
And we now see not just what he's about, we see what a large part of America has been about, but now they
Right.
feel free enough to verbalize it.
And I agree with everything you just said. I have a little slant, you know, when I look at the monuments and I talk about, and then like when they took this one right outside, I was out there looking at them, and I was saying, you know, you can remove every monument that you want, but until you remove the monument in your mind,
Yeah.
you know, you haven't done a thing. You haven't done a thing, and I think that's where, you know, the mentality comes from. The monuments that are we've still enslaved in our minds, and when you talk about the release of the made it okay, and when I looked at COVID, I was thinking, well, okay, it was kind of like a filter, like a fish has gills, and the water that's coming in, the impurities are filtered out, and we have lungs, and the same thing, we have cilia in our lungs. And it filters out everything,
All right, man.
and brings out the cleansing.
Yes.
You know, so, you know, that's what I thought. That with COVID, it's like, man, you put me at the starting. I'll start with anybody. You know, it's like, okay, because when we grew up, right, it was always a little dusty kid, man, that'd be like, okay, I'll give you a head start. Here, take your shoes off, and we'll run down the street, middle of the street. He'll walk everybody down in the whole, you know. So in this instance, it's like, we all put me back at the starting line. I'll start with y'all. I mean, you know, and I feel like there's not a head start with that. And with what you were saying about the president, I was thinking about a scab. You know, even if you have a scab on a sore, it's still pus under it. You just can't see it. But when, you know, when you pull the scab off, that's when you see what was already festering the entire time. So I think what this president has done, he's just pulled the scab off of a lot of people's thoughts. In 2016, they were saying, I ain't voting for Trump.
But then you look at the religious right. You look at the Christian church, which is the religious right, who chose Trump, and knowing his character or lack of positive character, knowing his immorality, knowing his lasciviousness, knowing that this man could care less because he's a narcissist. And if you understand, a narcissist is a psychological term that as long as he's on top, then it doesn't matter. But if anyone challenges that, then you're going to see him become a racist, a classist, a sexist, a pervert, and anything else he can become, because that narcissism controls him. So the Democratic Party, for me, has been, I mean, I'm ashamed of democracy now. With the Republican Party, I mean, you know, I'm ashamed, but I'm ashamed of what the Democrats have done too. I'm a partiless,
I agree with you.
I'm a partiless man. Does that say correctly? A partiless man. I don't have a party because I don't trust either party. And I know that our black folks say, we got to be a Democrat. No, because they haven't given us as much as we deserve.
Exactly. That's true words. That's true words. And you know, we've always been like the lesser of two evils, and like, you know, we probably deserve, we know we deserve more, you know, and we hear a lot about now, they're saying the new black agenda, and so like they have, I think it was, who was Ice Cube, came out and was like
Covenant with Black America.
Covenant with Black America, right? You know, and we've long deserved that because it's almost like you can take you know, eggs and no bacon, or you could take eggs with, you know, with bacon. You know, it's like, you know, those are your choices. But speaking of politics and office, I remember when you ran for public office. I remember. I was like, yeah, you know, just because, you know, really, honestly and truly, I
lost.
I know it, but excuse me. I get that. I get that part. But, you know,
I lost, and I had every major endorsement in the city of Chesapeake. Every endorsement from everyone I had made, other than the Republican Party. You know,
Yeah.
you got to be a Black Republican in Chesapeake to win, most likely.
Oh,
but
man.
so you know, so I lost. So you want to bring this up on a Tuesday that I lost the race? That's what you want to say?
But I'm going somewhere with this.
Okay, go bring up my failure. Go
I'm
ahead.
going somewhere with this.
Right.
No, I mean
It's okay. Seriously, go
because
ahead.
even with I've been, you know, because they just had a couple of Black Republicans. I'm not even gonna call their name because we've been battling. The one in Chesapeake, and you know, my whole thing is like, I ain't running as a Republican. I don't care what the situation is, but I voted for you. No, I'm not saying much, but you know, I believed in what you were saying, but and believe it or not, Chesapeake has the largest African American middle class in the entire Hampton Roads, even larger than Norfolk and Virginia Beach.
Oh.
Chesapeake middle class, the middle class in Chesapeake is larger than the entire any city in the 7 cities, and so
But we still can't get elected, you know, to major positions unless
you know why,
in
though?
old school.
No, you know why? Because they keep it as a general election,
And rather
and they
than
won't they won't
precincts.
break it down in a fair representation.
They won't. They
you
will
know,
not.
to different, and so that's what we need to. That's how we need to address it because, like you said, it's the statutes. You know what I mean? Not necessarily the statutes. Chesapeake needs to. Chesapeake, are you listening?
I hope so.
And they need to break it down to a fair representation where you know you're going to have Crestwood and South Norfolk and different. They're going to have representation. They do. That's what this country is built upon.
Yeah.
So, but the real question is, what are we running for next? And do you need a campaign manager?
You know, I ran for school board back in 2008, and I had every major endorsement, teachers' endorsement. I mean, just so many. But I still lost, and I lost because I couldn't galvanize the white vote in Great Bridge, Hickory area, while whites could galvanize the Black community to support them. And so I did it because I had kids in school. I had a vested interest in it, and I still do. But I wouldn't run for anything, and that's sad. I wouldn't run for anything. I wouldn't run for a political position because now I see the freedom for me and not running for positions, but to speak out on these positions.
Right.
Because you know, scratch your back because you helped me and you voted my way, and I got to vote your way. That's politics, and I don't play politics well. So I wouldn't run again, and that's unfortunate because people like you and others, I think the more qualified people won't run because it costs too much.
Right.
You know, and you know, you got to select a party.
Yeah. I mean, if I ever ran for something, I know it would be a one-term situation.
You say that
because you know, Unfiltered doesn't necessarily go well
right.
with the political landscape. But you know, at the same time, I just feel like we do need our more, you know, our qualified candidates who have a. I always say this thing: you can have some people have the will, and some people have the power, right? You know, a lot of people that have the will, like me, don't have the power. You know, and some people that have the power don't have the will.
Well,
So when we get, you know, it's a perfect storm when you create, you know, somebody with the will and the power to do the right thing. And so, you know, having said that, I just feel like, you know, I don't know, this area is so it's so flaky. We have as far as economics, as far as demographics, but it's just that same. Oh, I think I always call it like a cloud of despair and animosity and a whole lot of things that just hovers over this area. I always try to look for us to be another Charlotte. We probably won't be like Atlanta. Atlanta's another country. But
Some pros and cons with Atlanta.
So what do you think regionally, from a regional perspective, what do you think could help us as a region?
Man, I think that we're so splintered as a region that we don't want to tap into each other's strengths because we want to build, again, the monuments to ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
I think I see mayors like some pastors. It's not about the kingdom. It's about their branch. It's about their namesake, and I see some mayors, rather than being more regional concerned, that's where the strength comes in, that we all about, let me build Norfolk, let me build Chesapeake, let me build Virginia Beach, let me build Suffolk or Portsmouth. And so, and I understand that because you have to take care of your own home, your backyard.
Right.
I do understand that. But this region, this area, and maybe the casinos will come together and pull us together. People say, you're a pastor and you support casinos. Yes, I do support casinos, especially in Portsmouth, because they need some revenue.
Need revenue.
Almost 50% of Portsmouth's land base is non-taxable.
Landlocked, right.
Because of, not only landlocked, they're non-taxable because of churches, because of religious institutions that are non-taxable, and the government. You come to the shipyard, you're talking about the Naval Hospital. All of those things are not taxable. So people say, you're a pastor and you want to talk about gamble? Well, I gamble I gamble every day. I have stocks.
Oh,
if you got Apple stocks,
casting lots is the same thing.
People say, I don't gamble. You gamble every day if you got some level of investment.
You do.
You can't guarantee it. So
right. It is gambling.
So whether it's a 25-cent slot machine, blackjack, 21, or you going on your phone and you're calling up, your broker saying what's good this week.
Right.
That's gambling.
Yeah.
401k is a gamble.
It's what do they call it? Speculation.
That's what they call it, right? You
speculate. I'm a speculator. Will the pork bellies rise? What is going on?
But that's a good question, man. I wish our mayors would come together on a regional level and say, what can we do as a region? What power could we? That's a great question. I hope you pose it to them. Really, it's a great question.
Every chance I get.
I would love to see that conversation.
Right. Like regionalism. My vision was years ago. I was like, it could be like the city of Hampton Roads County with 7 boroughs. Nobody wants to give up their power. That was a pipe dream. I get it. But I was thinking okay, if you have I was fashioning after a New York City, where you still have the power structure. They have aldermen in the Bronx and Brooklyn and different places. They still have their own local governance, but it's all under New York City. But here, it's like Norfolk and Virginia Beach fighting every day, and just like they couldn't get a light rail to run from, one of the second largest city in Virginia down to Norfolk because we don't want y'all coming down to Norfolk and, messing up our beaches. But, you can drive down in droves and do it. It's the same thing going on. But it's been that way, and it reminds me of that song, what it says, and I hate to be the purveyor of, bad news, but some things will never change. But looking at Virginia Beach demographics, it's changing slowly because of the influx of not necessarily African Americans, but it's a lot of Hispanics. It's a lot of things are changing as far as the demographics. But
Caucasians will become the minority very soon in the United States because you have other demographics, and so when you look at that, I think they're fighting for power because they think they're going to lose power.
Trump is their last stand, like Custer.
Yeah, and so for me, it's even larger than Trump. Trump has become their voice piece, their mouthpiece, to say anything that dehumanizes another person. Doesn't matter who it is, black, white. Come on, Trump is a equal opportunity slayer. It doesn't matter. But you said something earlier. I'm okay with black Republicans who have to run as a Republican in order to get elected. I'm not okay when they disassociate themselves with blackness or the black consciousness and what has happened. You know, if you matter of fact, we got one of the greatest delegates in the Commonwealth of Virginia, Delegate Cliff Hayes. Cliff Hayes ran as a Republican.
I remember
some decades ago.
I got on him too.
In order to get on, but notice something. He ran as a Republican to win, but he still had an understanding of what the disparities were in our community, and he fought for those disparities. So now he is in a different position. Now he's fully Democrat, you know, but he got that experience and exposure running as a black Republican.
He did, and he's our next guest.
Okay.
He's going to be coming up shortly. But, you know, yeah, man, and we went back and forth and we debated and we talked. And, you know, like I said, it's just, you know, where we differ. I remember working with, you know, different things. I was the president of the PTA for the city of Chesapeake at the time, for the entire city. So
Wow.
I had an opportunity to work with them. But, you know, just for me in my house. You know, I said, my son ran as a Republican, I wouldn't vote for him either.
I don't know. I don't know.
I'm not doing it.
I don't know. In this season of my life, because I am so disenchanted with the Republican Party, because they have become complicit to the immoral activity, the unethical activity in 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. They are complicit for the hatred. They are complicit for the denouncing of civility and humanity. And so they can't get away. They can't get off because they are complicit to the release of evil and inequality and the religious right and the evangelical church. They are complicit, and they can raise their voices about abortion. They want to stop abortion, but they don't mind you dying when you're born. They don't mind you being disconnected from your family at the borders. They are so hypocritical. I love them. I just don't like many of them.
Preach. But no, seriously, I'm like, I mean, hey, Unfiltered. And having said that, we could probably go on for another hour or two, but that's going to bring this episode, our special election special, is going to bring it to a close. I want to thank Pastor Melvin Marriner from Grove Church, VA, for coming out and blessing us with his presence and his wisdom.
Thank you, sir.
All right, y'all have a good day. Get back at you.